Hello and welcome into Big Ten Today. So happy to have you here. I'm Kylan Mills. A lot to get to on this Friday. We've got a jam-packed weekend of men's basketball to come. Rafael Davis will be in just a moment to preview some of those matchups. However, we lead off today's show with the College Football National Championship now just a couple days away, and that is today's big story. The stage is set in Miami Gardens, Florida for an epic college football showdown. The National Championship game features the top-seeded Indiana Hoosiers looking to make history. They will take on the 10th-seeded Miami Hurricanes on Monday night in Miami Gardens. Dave Revson leads our Big Ten Network coverage down in the Sunshine State.
Kylan, thanks. We're back in South Florida for day 2 of our coverage of the college football playoff, getting set for the 28th ever official national championship game. And going back to the BCS era, it's the first ever to be played in one of the participating teams' home stadium. As we welcome you in to our Big Ten Network coverage, Dave Revson, Howard Griffith, Jake Butt, and Rhett Lewis. And yeah, this is where Miami plays its home games, guys. And yet there is a sense that Indiana will probably end up having more fans here than the Canes do. So I think it kind of begs the question, how big a factor, if any, do you think location is for this game?
Yeah, I think it adds to the game. I think it'll be a part of it in certain parts of the game. Say when Miami has the football and they're backed up and the crowd gets loud, or Indiana has a big play. But I think at the end of the day, it comes down to being able to execute at this particular point in this game. The fans will be involved, but it comes down to the players and coaching staff to be able to really be able to make this happen for themselves.
It helps Miami in the sense it gives them a fighting chance, but I think when they write about this in the history books, this is going to be an invasion of Hoosier fans. They would travel to the corners of the earth to take over this stadium, and that's just reality. And I think it matters. We've heard the players talk, whether it's Aiden Fisher or Fernando Mendoza, talk about the importance and the benefit of all the Hoosier fans taking over stadiums, especially when we know that Miami defensive line, as a great pass rusher, they want to get off on the snap count. Well, that helps Fernando Mendoza and the offensive line to be able to communicate. And then the flip side for Carson Beck, trying to figure out those simulated pressures and those different blitz packages from the Hoosiers. When their fans are loud on 3rd and long, that's going to make it that much more challenging for the Hurricane offense.
Yeah, maybe you should ask Dante Moore how much of a factor the crowd was on play 1 in the Peach Bowl at Mercedes-Benz Stadium with, 70,000 Hoosier fans screaming. I was down there on the field, and I can tell you that it was as loud as I have ever heard a bowl game environment. So I think that does play a factor. Obviously, I don't think you're going to be talking about, a 90% Indiana crowd here, but I think one of the numbers that makes some sense is Curt Cignetti's never lost a home game in his tenure at Indiana, and that includes the Big Ten Championship game, the Rose Bowl, and the Peach Bowl, because that's what it's felt like, Robert.
There will be Miami fans here. I mean, this is not going to be an Indiana home game, but to your point, I mean, we've seen how Indiana has traveled. I don't think there's any question that there are going to be many Hoosier supporters here, and they will be loud and proud. And the truth of the matter is, pretty much wherever the game is played under Curt Cignetti, Indiana has found a way to win it. I mean, we look at the numbers for Sig. They are staggering. No Big Ten coach has ever won more games through 2 seasons than Cignetti has, 26 and counting. Were he to win number 27, he'd become the 4th active head coach in college football to win a national title, joining Ryan Day, Dabo Swinney, and Kirby Smart. It's not just about him, though. And I think one of the great stories with Curt Cignetti is his staff and how these guys have followed him. And Rhett, you know these guys really well as an Indiana grad, as a former player, as someone who's done the radio broadcast historically for IU. This staff, Mike Shanahan, Brian Haynes, so many of the guys who have been with him, going back to the days at Indiana of Pennsylvania. Give us a sense of how that continuity has helped Indiana.
Well, continuity breeds clarity, and it also breeds, like, the expectation becomes very clear for this team. It is filtered through that coordinator level. We talk about those guys, Brian Haynes, Mike Shanahan, a ton, and rightly so, but I would also bring up Grant Kane, who's been the special teams coordinator for a long time and has developed a top 10 punt return unit, which might play a factor in this game. I'd bring up Pat Kuntz to you, the defensive line coach who's been with Sig now for a while, and the development that he has influenced with Tyreek Tucker and Mario Landino. I'd talk about Ola Adams, who has made Devin Boykin into a revelation in the postseason as a nickel corner. I think about Bob Bostad and Curt Cignetti's willingness to bring him back from the previous staff and the work that he's done with Bray Lynch and Drew Evans and Carter Smith and guys, Jake, that were at Indiana before Sig got there and have gotten so much better since he arrived.
Yeah, I think when you watch Indiana play, like there is just a pure organic clarity of team culture and standard, and that's because of the alignment with Cignetti, his coordinators, and his staff. But there's alignment above him too. I mean, this is top-down alignment from the university decision makers, the president, the athletic department. They are fully bought into Cignetti's vision, and that matters tonight. I'd also say let's spin it forward. If you're talking about which team is best set up to be the next dynasty, it's Indiana. Most teams, when they win a national championship, your coordinators become head coaches and your position coaches become coordinators. Look at Ohio State after they won, replacing both your coordinators. Michigan, Georgia, Oregon, replacing both their coordinators this year after having a great season. These guys have been with Cignetti for a decade. They're going to be with Cignetti going forward. The Hoosiers are the powerhouse, the emerging power of college football.
And I think one of the things that's fascinating about it is you mentioned those coordinators at other places that wanted to move on and really make their name for themselves as head coaches. These guys want to be head coaches eventually, but they've got a really good life. Quality of life, the ability to go out and coach the players that they want to coach. All of that factors into why this team has been able to have so much success. As you mentioned, you talk about alignment. I think the other very important thing is that when Coach Cignetti walks out of a room, he knows what each one of those coaches is going to be saying.
No doubt.
And that goes to the alignment. And to me, that is really the most important part of it when you start talking about building a championship culture that everyone in the building believes in the one guy in the corner office and want to do all the things to make sure that he's able to be successful as well.
I think they all have perspective, too, and the story's been told. But, I mean, we're talking about guys who 10 years ago, Bryant Haynes was making $10,000 a year and was literally living partially off government assistance and partially off asking his parents for money when he was at IUP. And so the perspective of where you were not that long ago in your life and where you are now, I think really resonates with these guys. And it was the same with Mike Shanahan. The other thing that really stands out to me is the resilience of this team. I mean, we've seen them cruise through the playoff, but they've had their backs up against the wall this year, right, during the regular season.
Absolutely.
We saw it against Oregon. We saw it against Penn State. We saw it against Iowa. We saw it in the Big Ten championship game against Ohio State. How do you explain that resilience?
It's really simple. They trust the process and they trust the plan. We can talk for days about what we think is going on, but the reality is it all starts with trust. It all starts with trusting the guy in the front of the room. And when you do that and you get everyone on the same page, great things can happen.
Yeah, I go back to Coach Cignetti. You know, they fell short against Ohio State and Notre Dame last year, and you can learn a lot from failure, saying, hey, we had a silent count on the road last year. We're going to adjust. Hey, we were not good enough at the line of scrimmage. We're going to upgrade that position. Of course, going out to get Fernando Mendoza. You know, when you win these close games, you need quality quarterback play. Comebacks require quality quarterback play. But then they win in the margins, too. They're never penalized. They win the turnover battle. They take care of the football. All those little details that get stressed by every program, Indiana is the one that executes it for 60 minutes anytime they take the field.
Yeah, I think it comes back to time on task and understanding, the expectation and the messaging from Curt Cignetti. I mean, think about it. You mentioned the games in which they've had their backs against the wall. How about the moments within those games? Like, just go back to the Rose Bowl. They had a 1st and 10, in plus territory and then get backed up on a holding penalty that usually kills a drive. But on 2nd down, Roman Hemby rips off a 22-yard run and erases it immediately. I just think that they have a great expectation of what they're capable of, and it helps them in those adverse moments.
There's a team of destiny feel to it. I don't think there's any question about it. Whether or not that continues on Monday, we will see. But it's certainly been the story to this point, and what an incredible ride it has been. Plenty more coming up from South Florida. But for now, we send it back to Kylan in Chicago.
Had plans this weekend? It is time to cancel them, Rafael, because Big Ten's men's basketball has taken over all 18 teams in action in the next 2 days, with 8 games taking place on Saturday. A quadruple header coming your way right here on the Big Ten Network. The action starts at noon Eastern with 13th-ranked Illinois taking on Minnesota. Joining us now to break down some of the big matchups is the man, the myth, the legend himself, Rafael Davis in the house. Great to see you. Ready to break down some Big Ten men's hoops, starting with number 4 Michigan out on the West Coast playing Oregon. Wolverines successfully bounced back against Washington, but it wasn't quite as emphatic of a win as we've seen from Michigan, previously with some big-time blowouts. How do they reestablish their identity?
Yeah, and that's fine. I think you look at Michigan right now, you look at this as a team that's went through that Wisconsin loss. They go back to that film session. It had to be uncomfortable. You look at how they were playing. Michigan was almost rolling the ball out and beating teams on talent by 40. And then you get Wisconsin coming into your gym, and they beat you at home. So it gave Dusty May a little bit of ammunition to get his team going. Because you look at that Washington game, the defense was better. And it was the little things. They were closing out better. Ball containment was different. When the ball went up, all 5 guys went to rebound. You look at this Michigan squad at some points this season, they shoot the defense off, opponent shoot the basketball. They expect Morez Johnson to get the rebound. You expect the Damar to get the rebound. So you see Namari Burnett and Roddy Gale start to leak out and try to get out in transition. In that Washington game, it was back to the basics. All 5 guys rebounding, all 5 guys communicating at a high level. That's who this Michigan team has to be. We know how talented they are, but if you don't pay attention to the details, they come back to bite you like they did in that Wisconsin game.
And then for Oregon, struggles continue. I know you've talked about big man Nate Biddle needing to be better, but they've also been really bitten by the injury bug with Jackson Shelstead missing the last 4 games. And then a number of other players have kind of been in and out of the lineup here the last couple of weeks. They're looking for a big time upset as they host the Michigan Wolverines. Moving along to your 5th-ranked Purdue Boilers, also out on the West Coast, taking on USC. They've been on a roll, off to a 6-0 start in Big Ten play, have won 8 straight. Point guard Braden Smith has been cooking, leading the team in the last 3 games. How does he set the tone for this Boilers group?
As my daughter calls him, Tiny Man. Tiny Man has been big time. You look at that.
He's catching strays,
Oh, no,
though.
she loves
Tiny
him.
Man.
He's her favorite player because she's tiny. She's Tiny Girl. But Braden Smith, he's been awesome, especially over these last 3 games. We know what Braden Smith can do passing the basketball, setting the table for teammates. But you look at the last 3, Fletcher Loyer hasn't been that great. Trey Kaufman-Wren doesn't look like himself, so a lot has been on Braden Smith's shoulders, and he's delivered in a higher rate. You go to that Iowa game earlier this week, didn't score in that first half, struggled offensively. The team got down 10 points in that second half, and Braden Smith took the ball game over. He was big time. 16 of his points coming after the break. The last 3 games averaging over 22 points in contest. If you're going to get this level of aggressiveness from Braden Smith on the offensive end, you get TKR back rolling, you get Fletcher Loyer making some shots. This Purdue team, flying under the radar a little bit right now, could be poised to make another national championship run. And if Braden's going to play this way, to go along with C.J. Cox and with the boys they've been putting together on the defensive end, Purdue could win a national championship. But if I'm USC, if I'm in that locker room, I'm Coach Eric Musselman. No Chadwick Mazar, no Rodney Rice, no Elijah Arenas. You were still able to get a double-figure, big-time win over Maryland by playing the right way, moving the basketball, sharing the sugar, playing inside out, and rebounding at a high level. That's got to be USC's identity going forward. Can't be no more of that cute stuff.
USC, cute stuff? Wait, what defines cute stuff exactly?
Oh, you see guys in the locker room, they doing their hair before the game, they come out, and then they come out and they just shoot a bunch of threes. Once you see a team start pass to you, you pass it back to me, I shoot a 3, I try to cross, shoot a 3. That's just cute basketball. It's not going to win you games in this conference.
Yeah, well, you know what will win you games is balance. In that last win over Maryland, they had 5 players in double figures, and that was with Chad Baker-Mazara, only playing 9 minutes coming off the bench. If you can continue that, you definitely have a chance to win some of these tough Big Ten games that are coming up for USC. One of the hottest teams in the country, right here in the Big Ten, the 8th-ranked Nebraska Cornhuskers, one of the last remaining unbeaten teams in the nation. They're going to be playing at Northwestern. Rink Mass, speaking of balance, only scored 5 points in their 35-point blowout against Oregon. You talk about balance, like that's the picture of it right there.
Yeah, and they're connected on both ends of the floor. And you look at Rink Mass after that game, he didn't care he only scored 5 points. I've been in locker rooms with guys that we may have a 40-point win, and if they didn't get their numbers, they were upset the rest of the night. You look at this Nebraska team, no one cares, and that makes for a great team. They're connected offensively. They do a great job of passing up good shots for better shots for great shots. No one cares who gets in that box score, and they have multiple guys that can beat you. Think Jamarcus Lawrence, game winner at Illinois, goes crazy at Indiana. That game at home against Oregon earlier this week, Price Sanford, Braden Frager, different guys step up in tough moments, and they deliver at high rates for their team. But on the flip side, if I'm Northwestern, you got Nebraska coming into your gym, you need a big-time win to save your season. The season's not over for the Wildcats. Yeah, they're 0-6 in the Big Ten, but You got 14 games left in this conference, and you could turn your season around with this Nebraska win. It would be big time, but you need Arrington Page. You saw what Jaden Reed did in that game earlier this week. We know what Nick Martinelli is able to do. Arrington Page has got to be a guy that can go to and depend on every night.
Looking ahead to our next game, Iowa playing at Indiana, 2 p.m. Eastern on Saturday on Fox. The Hawkeyes 1 week ago, Rafael, a top 25 team. Now they've lost 3 straight for the first time this season. The head of the snake has to be point guard Bennett Sturtz. He has to show up for this team to have a chance.
Yeah, and I say this lightly because Bennett Sturtz has been playing good basketball. But when you look at the Iowa squad, they're limited in their talent aspect when you think about it. When they get in those close games, you get down the stretch, that game at Purdue, you need Bennett Sturtz to just simply take over that ball game. 19 points is great. It would have been one of my better games of my career if I think about it. But when you're Bennett Sturtz, you're the leader of this Iowa squad, you don't have a lot of guys that can go out there and get buckets. You look at their bench, they don't produce a lot from that area. So Bennett Sturtz, when they go on a road, you go to Assembly Hall, you've got to be able to count on young fella to go out there and get you 25, 30 on every given night. And then for Indiana, Tucker DeVries has got to be better. We could talk about X's and O's. We could talk about Lamar Wilkerson, his hot start to the season. But Indiana, they're not going to be the team they thought they could be if Tucker DeVries is only going to give them 9 points a game, which he has the last 4 games.
Forget the X's and O's. It's about the Jimmies
and the Joes. It's about the Jimmies and the Joes. Tucker's got to get going. Tucker could be one of the better players in this conference, but right now, young fella just settling for threes. He's got to be an impact player on the offensive end, get to the free throw line, get some rebounds. He can't just play through his offense like he has been, or Indiana's going to continue to struggle.
For the record, that's Rafael's quote, not mine. I'm stealing it because he had me cracking up when he said that the other day. Iowa-Indiana game to look forward to on the hardwood. But speaking of the Hoosiers, let's switch gears.
From now, you look at the full list of Columbus grads who will be on the field Monday. Of course, the best footnote of all, Miami's head coach Mario Cristobal and his associate head coach Alex Mirabal were teammates with Fernando Mendoza's dad back in the late 80s. We love a full circle story. Ashley Adamson back with Howard Griffith, Jake Butt, and Rhett Lewis. I will tell you guys, I was on campus yesterday, and this is a school with wonderful leadership because they have already canceled classes on Tuesday.
Come on.
So it's just leadership in action is what that is. Rhett, honestly, though, I don't think there is a marketing campaign that you could ever come up with that could equal what Christopher Columbus is getting from having 7 alum on this field.
I mean, an incredible achievement. I mean, what a powerhouse program, right? To have that kind of lineage, I think that's super cool. And I think it's also interesting. There are some other Miami-born guys here that like Fernando, maybe were overlooked by the U. D'Angelo Pons being one of them from Chaminade Madonna, and then Jamari Sharp, his middle school teammate, both now starting corners for Indiana at Northwest Senior High in Miami. Also not really recruited by the U, but we'll be playing against them on Monday night.
Well, think about these players, too, especially Mendoza as a leader. Like, he really cares about giving back. And what does this mean for those students? Getting to look up and say, think about what they think all of a sudden is possible, knowing these guys went to my high school. Maybe I can be a star one day, too.
Yeah, they've had some stars come through there that have gone on and played in the National Football League. Some great players that have done that. But this, as you mentioned, really a great opportunity for young people to see, oh, yeah, I can continue to dream and strive for bigger and better things when you see people playing on a big stage like this.
It is so cool. And, again, I was on campus yesterday and got to feel some of that energy. And I had a chance to talk to Fernando's high school coach, Dave Dunn, about what it's like watching his formerly under-recruited and overlooked quarterback become the face of college football. Very
like a good
diplomatic answer.
Great job, Ash. That was
Coach
a terrific
Dunn.
interaction.
I love when he said, I'm not an I told you so guy, Howard, but it's kind of nice to be an I told you so guy.
It really is. But I would also say this. I would say that, and when you think about Fernando, he would probably admit this, that there, at the time that he was coming out, he may have not been the guy for Miami at that particular time. But it really is about what college athletics is about, an opportunity to continue to develop, hone your skill set. And that's what he's taking the opportunity to do. Pons the same way. There are so many reasons why you would say, I don't know, height, he can't do this, he can't do that. Right, but he's continued to develop and produced, and he's one of the best corners in college football.
Honestly, adversity molds the best athletes. Being overlooked, being told you can't do something or you're unwanted or you're not good enough, that's usually like the beginning of the origin story. I know Mendoza's a big fan of Tom Brady. Tom Brady still carries that chip on his shoulder that he was a 6th-round pick, even though we all call him the GOAT. Raiders have the number 1 overall pick, and Brady's there in the ownership position. But that's what the best athletes do. They use negativity and adversity to mold them and propel them to higher heights. It just adds to the aura in the story of Mendoza.
Well, I think to your point also, Howard talking about Fernando maybe not being the guy that we're seeing today back in 2020 when he was under-recruited. He's not the guy today that he was in week 1 for this team. Remember, he didn't throw a touchdown pass against ODU in the first week and still found a way to operate the offense, but has gotten better week over week. And I think that is one of the great attributes of this coaching staff and of this team is the improvement, not just year over year, but week to week and day to day of some of these players. And like just one example, that back shoulder throw that we love, that he hits to Elijah Surratt so often. There was a little bit too much pace on it early on in the year. I had to learn to put a little bit more arc on that ball, work on that front shoulder so that by the time it gets there, it ends up being a back shoulder. Like just one little piece of some of the things that he continues to work on week after week. As Coach Sig said, nobody works harder than this dude, Fernando Mendoza, and we're seeing the product of that work.
His process in his journey is, you can see the confidence that he plays with on the field, and that's because of his process in his journey and the work that he's put in. He's
to talk to Bill Musgrave, who is the OC at Cal, who was the one guy who offered Fernando Mendoza at the FBS level out of high school.
Smart man.
And it's smart man. And he said, at the end of practice, he'd be in with the threes and they drop some, 4 seconds left, 4th down, got to have a touchdown. And he said every single time Fernando would come in and he would throw some ridiculous walk-off touchdown as he was getting drilled. And he goes, it started to get to the point, he did it like 4 or 5 days in a row, and then it just became this thing. And he goes, so we've been seeing it ever since he was working with the threes.
We've seen it this year.
Back in Berkeley, and we've seen it on some bigger stages, certainly this time. It is going to be a cool moment for Christopher Columbus High School on Monday. There's no question about that. Whoever writes this.
As we welcome you back to our coverage from South Florida, Dave Revson, Howard Griffith, Jake Butt, and Rhett Lewis. And guys, that certainly shows the unpredictability of this sport, the fact that we have this national championship matchup. It's been an unpredictable season for IU in a lot of ways, partly based on some of the players, the unlikely players who have stepped up and played major roles. Who stands out to you there, Howard?
Well, before we go there, I think one of the things that really happens when you talk about making a run to this championship game, because there's so many games to be played, you have to have a deep roster. You have to have guys be able to step up and make the plays in a time of need. And that's what they've had, particularly with Charlie Becker stepping up. You think back to that Penn State game and what an unbelievable game he had in that matchup. But one of the things that I really like about the way he plays the game is he's going to create separation when he has an opportunity to make a play. He's able to push the ball down the field. You talk about a guy that has stepped up in big moments, and you don't talk about just plays that are routine plays that he was able to make when he stepped in. He was making some unbelievable receptions, and I think he's one of the main reasons that Indiana finds himself here now.
But he's also downed punts inside the 5-yard line like he did in the Peach Bowl. He's kind of everywhere, which is fun to watch, and that's where he kind of began, right on special teams, making an impact, and then Surratt goes down, and boom, his star takes off.
We talk about Indiana being a complete football team. They've been a complete offense, but Charlie Becker, when he came onto the scene, I mean, he gives them that ability to stretch defenses vertically. I mean, he's got a different type of speed. He's got a track background. That ends up having ripple effects. That opens things up for Surratt, for Cooper, even for Riley Nowakowski. And to me, that's one of the unsung heroes of the Indiana offense.
And I think one of the things that's really cool about him is he was committed to the old staff. And then when this new staff came in, they kept him as a commitment. He's a player who had touched the ball one time from scrimmage last year. And then because of injuries, because of circumstance this year, he steps up and again has played a major role. So Charlie Becker, certainly one of those guys who stepped up. How about for you, Jake? Who stands out?
The tight end, Riley Nowakowski.
Oh, there's a
imagine that.
Guess what? Yeah. Well, I remember we had Indiana, Wisconsin the week after Indiana played Penn State, and Coach Shanahan just told our crew right away, he's like, we see Riley Nowakowski as one of the most underrated pieces of our offense, kind of like an unsung hero. And he's comfortable doing the dirty work. Of course, when you're a tight end, you have to be able to block at the line of scrimmage. I want to show you 2 back-to-back plays to start this out. Here he is getting just big-time movement on an Illinois defensive end. Look at him driving his guy 5, 6, 7 yards down the field. When you block like that, that inevitably sets up the tight end screen. Illinois is not going to believe him blocking if he doesn't block. Well, now he gets the ball on a tight end screen, turns into an explosive touchdown. So there's a good marriage, but even more than that, he has the ability to move around with formations and motions. Here he is at the point man of the bunch, throw a little bubble screen, easy completion. nearly pancakes this guy 10 yards down the field. Outstanding stuff. And we all remember Mendoza to Omar Cooper. That was one of the great plays of the season. It doesn't happen without Riley Nowakowski being in the right place at the right time on that bender route there, Rhett. He's not considered a first-round talent as a tight end, but to me, he's such an important piece to unlocking so many different elements of the Hoosier offense.
I saw it in the spring game. I didn't even know who he was yet. I remember texting Mike Shanahan. I was like, boy, 37, sure's got a stinger in the run game. And he was like, yeah, watch out. He's going to be a big part of the offense. And he really has been. The impact has been huge. And it's on special teams, too, where Grant Kane, the special teams coordinator, stood on the table to go get Riley Nowakowski and bring him to Indiana.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to think of how he has emerged. I mean, this is a guy, last 8 games, he's caught more passes than he caught his entire career at Wisconsin. I think that's part of the genius of this staff, is they get the most out of players. They see guys who maybe other programs weren't able to utilize to their maximum potential, and they utilize them. And then they found young guys within their system, and I know one that really stands out to you, Rhett.
Well, it's not just next man up, right? It's next man stars. That's kind of been the case for this Indiana team, and I think everyone was wondering, okay, well, what are they going to do when Stephen Daly goes down and when Kellen Wyatt went down? Well, there's a lot of different plans of attack there. I mean, they moved Mikhail Kamara around a little bit, moved Mario Landino around a little bit, which allowed for Daniel Ndukwe to step into a starring role in this postseason, and particularly in the Peach Bowl, where he had defensive side of the ball. He has really taken advantage of it, and that is one of the biggest things that impresses me about this Indiana team.
I think this is part of what makes this team great. I mean, all 3 of those examples, right? They're a team, and you never know who it is who's going to step up. But everyone who gets put in that spotlight is ready to go, and that speaks to all the things that we've been talking about. What makes IU so great is everyone knows what their assignment is, and if the moment calls for it, they can execute it. It's been fabulous to watch, Kylan.
Yes, it has, Dave. One of the many impressive parts about this Indiana offense is the depth. 7 different players have scored touchdowns in the college football playoffs. Shout out to a cornerback, D'Angelo Pons, with a pick 6 in the semis. Running back Kalen Black and wide receiver Elijah Surratt lead the way with 3 apiece. The Hoosiers bring in the second highest scoring offense in the country to the national title game, averaging more than 42 points per game. Saturday, a great slate of men's hoops comes your way as Illinois hosts Minnesota, Rutgers takes on Wisconsin, Nebraska faces Northwestern, and Michigan State battles Washington. Coverage begins with a tip-off show at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 Pacific, only on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Rafael Davis back with me to preview some more of the upcoming weekend matchups, starting with number 12 Michigan State out west playing Washington. The Spartans have now won 3 in a row, coming off a decisive win against the Hoosiers where they played very typical Tom Izzo basketball. Defense, rebound, run. Essentially rinse and repeat, I guess, moving forward?
Yeah, you know how we always say, this isn't your grandfather's team. We're talking about something new. Well, this is your grandfather's team if you're looking at Michigan State.
I love that.
They are back to the basics. They are tough, they play hard, and they get after you. When they get out in transition, they are tough to deal with. Jeremy Fears, one of the quicker point guards in the country. They push that basketball. They look to get the game on early, and when the shot goes up, they crash that glass. They got 2 big dogs in the middle with Cooper and Kohler finishing everything around that circle arc, and then you got Cohen Carr going to finish and dominate rims. This Michigan State team right now, flying under the radar. You think we're talking about Michigan, we're talking about Nebraska, even talking about Purdue. It takes me back to 2015 when that Michigan State team, they snuck to the Final Four, but all season it was Wisconsin, it was Maryland, and then it was Michigan State. It allowed them to develop themselves, and then they've developed Jeremy Fears into that go-to scorer. Over the last 5 games, he's been averaging over 18 points a contest. He can keep that up. You know what you get inside, you know what you get on the glass, you know what you get defensively. Michigan State is stout right now.
Real quick note on Washington, Desmond Claude and Wesley Yates made their first return since being out with an injury last game against Michigan. If they can get healthy, the Huskies can get healthy. Keep an eye on them moving forward in Big Ten play. Another big game coming up on Saturday right here in the Big Ten Network is Minnesota at number 13 Illinois. The Illini have been on a nice run here recently, led by a freshman, Rafael and Keaton Wagler. What have you seen from the young star?
Everything. Keaton Wagler is a
Checks
dog.
every box.
All caps, D-A-W-G, because he can get to it. That game at Northwestern on the road as a freshman took the game over in that second half. Won Illinois the game. He was dominant. 22 points coming after the break, getting downhill, finishing at the rim, finishing through contact. His ability to find teammates off of that ball screen is special. When you get Keem Wagler being this aggressive off of ball screens, but then you also have Ivicic who can step back, pick and pop, and knock him down. He had 21 at Northwestern. This Illinois squad has figured it out offensively, and they're being tougher on the glass. They're being tougher on the defensive end. They are cooking with gas at the right time because you look at their backcourt, we know Keaton is the scorer, but then you got the little big man in Kylan Boswell doing all the little work, defending, hustling, passing the ball, sharing the sugar. When your guards are good, it makes you good. And then on the other side, for Minnesota, Cade Tyson, one of the better scorers in the country, he's got to be consistent. You've got to be able to expect 20 points a game every night from Cade Tyson. He can't have any off nights. We know Minnesota, they want to bleed the clock. They want to share the basketball. They want to cut hard. But you need your star to be a star every single night if you want to do something special in the Big Ten.
Tyson had just 11 points going into the final 10 seconds of that last game against Wisconsin where they came up short. He did hit a 3 late to finish with 14, but to your point, well below his season average. They need Cade Tyson to be great every single night, as Rafael says, to have a chance. Rutgers taking on Wisconsin at 2 p.m. Eastern on Saturday right here on BTN. The Badgers, on the flip side of that buzzer beater, got the big win thanks to John Blackwell calling game, running laps around the gym. What's been working so well for the Badgers, though, as a team here as of late?
They've had an offensive explosion. They're playing the game the right way. Wisconsin is starting to figure out exactly what Greg Gard wants from them on the offensive end. Like we talked about Nebraska, passing them good for great. The Wisconsin's ability to get 2 feet in the paint and spray out the shooters has been phenomenal over the last 3 games, and they've got to continue it on. You know what you get with John Blackwell, who's been balling over the last 3 or 4 games. You get Nick Boyd being that facilitator, getting into the lane. 2 great guards to lead the attack, but you need those other guys to keep making shots. Braden Carrington has been special over the last couple. Nolan Winter is becoming that leader that we know him to be, but this Wisconsin offense is potent right now. The basketball is popping. Guys are making shots. But on the other side, you look at Rutgers, Tariq Francis. We know he's a bucket. Had 30 against Northwestern, had 30 against Oregon, but they were both at home. You play better at home, young fella, but when you go on the road, only 6 points at Illinois, he's got to be a guy that Rutgers can depend on. You get 30 at home, you got to give us 30 on the road, young fella. You can't be consistently inconsistent with your scoring.
Rutgers does have a lot of youth, clearly a little bit of a learning curve when it comes to getting into the grind of Big Ten play. They are coming off an overtime win, though, against Northwestern. Yep. Maybe you can utilize some of that experience momentum moving forward. They've got a tough one, though, at Wisconsin. UCLA playing at Ohio State coming up on Saturday. The Bruins starting to improve here at 4-2 in Big Ten play, but the Buckeyes in need of a win, fair to say. What are you watching for in that one?
The point guard matchup. I've had this game circled since the beginning of the summer. You got Bruce Thornton, you got Donovan Dent, 2 of the better guards in the United States, but playing 2 different styles of basketball, especially at this point in the season. Bruce Thornton has been special for the Buckeyes, averaging over 20 points a game and doing it on so high splits, over 55% from the field and over 44% from the three-point line. He is getting his game on, but he needs some help. Devin Royal, you've got to be consistent. You've got to be someone you can depend on. Christoph Tilley is the difference from this season, from last season. When you look at Ohio State and that interior presence, they've got to be productive at home. We know role guys. We know freshmen. We know the bench plays better at home, so I'm looking forward to that. But on the flip side, like we just mentioned, road guys, freshmen, they play better at home. UCLA's going on the road. Donovan Dent has got to be big time. He's got to be special. He's got to pick up his performance. UCLA, they're trending in the right direction right now, but they need their point guard to be at his best if they want to reach the special heights that they planned in coming into the season. Over the last 2 games, Donovan Dent's only scored 8 points combined. If he's not right, they're not right. I know Trent Perry's been great, but you need Donovan to get going.
Great. 30 points. I feel like that's pretty great. That's exactly what he did against Penn State as UCLA got the win in their last game, looking to keep it rolling against Ohio State now out in the Midwest. Penn State taking on Maryland on Sunday to finish off this busy weekend. You can watch that matchup at 12 p.m. Eastern right here on BTN. What intrigues you about these 2 teams?
2 teams that need wins. You look at Maryland right now, you need a big-time win. You're at home. You got to figure out a way. Just find ways to score the basketball outside of the half court. Offensive rebound, get out in transition, push the break. And then on the other side, Penn State getting healthy. You don't know if Freddie Dillion's going to be back. Don't know about Katie Mingo. Just got to play the basketball the right way, share the sugar, and get Jure going down low on that block to probably put yourself in a good position on the road.
Well, someone's going to get a Big Ten win by the end of Sunday. It'll be Penn State or Maryland, both teams desperate for it, but a big opportunity maybe to get some momentum.
Did this matchup at the beginning of the season. Remember, Miami was ranked as low as 18th in November after losing to SMU. Both of these teams are here, though, because they are battle-tested. Hoosiers have 5 wins over teams currently ranked in the CFP Top 25, and the Canes have 4. If you had shown us this graphic back in August, that Indiana was going to beat Ohio State, Oregon twice, Alabama, and then the margin of victory in the playoff games, like, I would have thought maybe it was a typo, if I'm being totally honest. But gentlemen, they have answered the bell at every turn. And Jake, I had a coach tell me once that football is easy, people are complicated. And I think the thing that stands out to me about this team is that every week Curt Cignetti has a group of 18 to 23-year-olds dialed in, locked in, and ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. And I think these rank wins, these top 25 wins, are just a perfect representation of this football team as a whole. Most of the time, these are competitive games. I know Indiana has blown out a number of these opponents in their ranked battles. But when you're talking about close games, thin margins, all those little things start to add up. Indiana is not often penalized. They don't turn the ball over. They're technically and fundamentally sound in all 3 phases at each position, even when they're tired and in high-pressure situations in the fourth quarter. There's a real method to their madness. We laugh and poke fun at Cignetti when the camera zooms down on him and he looks pissed off in the middle of a blowout. But the reason is because there is a standard and expectation for those 6 seconds between the first whistle and the last that he holds his team to. And in that sense, Rhett, every single play is a practice and opportunity to prepare for their standard to allow them to execute in these ranked matchups.
Well, it was an expectation shift when Curt Cignetti arrived in Bloomington. I mean, like, everything he says is so deliberate. Like, when he said, Purdue sucks and so does Michigan and Ohio State, like, that was deliberate, right? Sending a message program-wide. His players received that message too, and they expected to be here. Right, that's the thing. This is a surprise maybe to everyone else, but I was talking to Aiden Fisher this week, and he was like, yeah, man, it's just, 1-0 one more time. That's what we got to do. Nameless, faceless opponent. And the fact that there is some kind of, poetic justice to when you look at teams that have had the most wins in college football over the course of the last 2 years. Notre Dame, Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana are up in that mix. And, this whole year started for Indiana with a loss to Notre Dame in South Bend. Howard and I were there for that. Remember kind of seeing, it felt like Curt Cignetti had already identified what he needed for his team to win this year once he left the locker room in South Bend that day. And then, end up beating Ohio State, Oregon twice to get to 26 and on the cusp of another one here. There's just, it's been really impressive the way that they have set expectations and met them, Howard, every week.
I point to that interaction that we had with Coach Cignetti that day, because from our perspective, we thought, hey, maybe he's not going to make his way down to the set because he had taken a tough loss.
Yeah.
But as we're walking back toward our set and we're walking with him, he had already established who was going to be on campus. He knew that and was excited about it because he understood what the process, he understood what they needed to get here. Yes. And he has built that. And when you look at this roster and you look at the transfer portal coming up, he has done it again. This is what success starts to breed, but it all starts at the top.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, look, they have treated every game like it is a 1-week season, right? Yeah. And Curt Cignetti said, my message to the guys this week is going to be the worst thing that we could do would be to change what we have done, because now it actually is a 1-game season. Kyle, we'll have much more coming up here from Hard Rock Stadium later tonight on The Big Show, but for now we'll send it back to you in Chicago.
Ashley, awesome stuff as always. Saturday morning, don't miss wall-to-wall coverage of CFP National Championship Media Day starting at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Monday, the Hoosiers look to bring home a natty, and the Big Ten Network is the place to be all day long with a special 2-hour edition of Big Ten Today. Extensive pre- and post-game coverage and an expanded Big Show will break it all down. We hope you'll keep it here on the Big Ten Network throughout the weekend. 4 men's hoops games also coming your way on Saturday. Wrestling coming up tonight, starting with a pregame show at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. We hope to see you then. Have a great weekend.